Jazzcast Pros.
Let's welcome Janice, a relationship coach and co-host of the Breaking Upward podcast. Janice empowers women to heal from breakups and reclaim their strength. Her insights on overcoming heartbreak and build confidence are sure to inspire you. Welcome to Season 8 of the Fearless Fridays with Maryann podcast. I am your host, Maryann Rivera-Dannert, and in this season, we're embracing what it truly means to live an empowered life. It's time to step into your power, reclaim your voice, and rewrite your story. Join me on this journey of growth, resilience, and fearless transformation as we explore how to unlock the tools to thrive, not just survive. Get ready to nurture, heal, and rise as we become fearless, fabulous, and free together. And today we have an amazing young lady with us. So without further ado, let's bring her on and get started. Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Maryann. I'm excited to be here. We are waiting for what I was telling you is supposed to be the storm of the century here in Denver. So yeah, it's warm. It's all warm and fuzzy seeing you here.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So let's get started. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
I'm Janice Formichella. I am a breakup and dating coach and a secure attachment coach. And I'm also the host of the podcast Breakups, Broken Hearts, and Moving On, which is a podcast about all three of those things. And I also work one-on-one with people to navigate all three of those things.
That's awesome. So tell us the backstory. What got you into this line of work?
Well, I originally got into this line of work through wanting to help people through breakups, wanting to be exclusively a breakup coach. That has changed, especially recently. But the reason I wanted to be a breakup coach is I had had my life stalled because of breakups. I had had my life transformed because of breakups. I had experienced various levels of support from my inner circle through my breakups and through a sordid life and a sordid romantic history, decided that this was definitely something that was necessary. I was divorced about 15 years ago. I think I'm probably older than most people would think I am. And that was my first really transformational breakup because I was coming into my 30s. It was a very worst case scenario situation. Mm-hmm. We had been together all through our 20s. And I always thought to myself, I will do anything to keep this relationship. I'm an ex-Mormon. I don't have really a relationship with my family. My complete identity was based on this relationship. And I always said, this would be the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Yeah. And when it happened, I was lucky enough to have a strong female support system around me. And I learned so much about how to love myself. A few years later, I left another relationship that was actually quite violent and had the exact opposite experience. And so I just came to understand what objective outside support can do when you're going through a breakup and decided someday that I would do it. And here I am.
That's awesome. And it's interesting how we always seem to turn our adversities and obstacles, turning them around and becoming that individual that we needed for other people. So walk us through, what were some of the things that you experienced during the divorce that kept you stuck, that you felt were unhealthy, and that finally gave you the courage to leave?
Oh, absolutely. So I think that one of the big things that people, I think, can probably relate to is that you become a completely different person between the ages of 20 and 30. We had gotten married very young because I was raised in the LDS faith, and that was just how you did things. I mean, if you're past 20 as a woman, it's like, come on, what is the problem?
Yeah.
And so I had a strong desire to be married. He was not from my faith, but it was still the paradigm in which I was living. And you change and you decide the closer you get to 30, the different paths that you're going to take, both personal development wise and spiritually. And I was really lucky, like I said, to have this female support network around me. I was living in New York City, going to grad school at the time. I had just gotten plugged into this just activated network of women who I just respected and looked up to. And I saw the way that they were in their relationships. And I actually saw that quite a few of them were also going through divorces as, I guess, a consequence of their own spiritual journey, because you just decide and you realize that you can't do things in a certain way anymore. And like I said, my identity was completely tied up in my marriage. I lost my self-respect. I would have done anything for this person, regardless of where my dignity, came into play. And I knew that things needed to change. I tried to help our relationship evolve, and things just got worse and worse. I know firsthand what it means to go through textbook gaslighting. When you try and go against the status quo in a relationship, that was his defense mechanism. And after about a year of that, it just fell apart. We weren't going on the same path anymore. Things were going bad and my self-love was going up.
Right.
And yeah, I wouldn't say I gave an ultimatum, but it was definitely like, get on this train or
get out.
Get off it. Yeah.
Get off of it.
Yeah. And it was painful, I have to say, excruciatingly so. In a way, I can look back and, really sympathize with that woman, because she made a very, very hard choice. Yeah. But ultimately, here I am.
And then you found yourself in a different relationship that was much worse. So talk to us about that a little bit. What was it that led you to say yes to that relationship? And what were some of the things that you ended up discovering about yourself?
I love talking about my experience as a survivor. So yes, thank you so much for wanting to dive a little deeper into this. I had a great recovery from my divorce because of the support system. And I made some decisions that I probably would not make again. One of them being, I left New York, I went to California. I thought I needed to be by the beach to continue healing, and which just wasn't the case. Everything that you need to heal is already inside of you. And I kept a strong community in New York. Long story short, I met someone who was fascinating and brilliant and gorgeous and had a lot of the things on the outside that I felt were lacking in my marriage. Spontaneity, a sense of adventure, somebody who was very generous and kind. And my ex-husband had a lot of financial hangups that really caused, and he was the opposite. And so having only been divorced for a year and a half, I was really excited that someone like this was so focused on me, and also being very inexperienced in the ways of the world. Right. Had no idea what love bombing looked like, and that it was a red flag. And I mean, he was good at it. He was a textbook abusive alcoholic. And before I even understood what was happening, I not only thought I was in love, I was way in over my head. I'd moved to Europe to be with him. Wow. And then, you're in so deep. It took a while to get untangled from it. And also textbook, I keep using that word, but as a survivor, or as a woman in a domestic violence situation, kept going back, leaving, going back. Yeah. And by the end of it, my support network was completely over it. And so then people were not really as happy to support me after. Yeah. And again, another seed was planted to be a breakup coach.
So you mentioned a term that a lot of people, they may or may not be familiar with. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Love bombing.
Sure. I would absolutely love to. This is when somebody possibly with some abusive tendencies sets their eye upon you, and instead of trying to authentically and organically get to know you as a person, decides that they will have you, and in order to have you, will manipulate you into the relationship by elevating you constantly. I love bombing. I mean, I was constantly bombarded with actual physical letters, waking up with long emails about how wonderful I was. The gifts were, my God, I'd never experienced someone buying me so many expensive gifts that were not only just huge gestures, but things that I actually loved. One weekend he woke up and said, we're going to go to Vegas this weekend, booked us tickets, stayed in the, nicest hotel on the Strip, had an absolute blast. He'd only known me a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it was, again, as someone who's a little less experienced in the ways of the world, still technically recovering from a divorce, this was all exciting for me, but it's completely inappropriate to do these things for someone who you just met. This is not no way of getting to know me as a person. It's manipulating me through these grand gestures into the relationship.
And then you also mentioned that, you left New York to be in California because you felt that you needed to be by the beach to continue healing. And you said something that was so key, that everything that you need is inside of you. So what was the healing process from that next relationship that got you to where you are today? What were some of the tools that you used to start healing?
Thank you so much. One thing is, I actually ended up moving to Australia after leaving. And that is not at all what you need to do. But what was fundamental about moving to Australia was it got me away from the people who were kind of judging me by the experience. And it kind of forced me to get back in touch with the essence of myself. So I'm not saying at all for people not to rely on your support network. Yeah. And I'm certainly not saying to move to any other country. You don't need to do that. But I do encourage people who are going through a bad breakup or abuse to somehow get into an environment or a situation or just a headspace where you can really rediscover yourself and who you were before all this drama and chaos started. And therefore, you will see what's inside of you and you will know that you're a capable person who can do this on your own. But you really have no way to know that unless you even know who you are. Yeah. And so for me, that was really, really fundamental. I started picking up my hobbies again. I started doing 5 rhythms dancing, which is a form of dance therapy. And I just processed everything that had happened over the last 4 years and who I was before it and who I wanted myself to be. And from that space was able to figure out what it would take to heal and what I would want to get out of healing at all. I mean, when you're recovering from domestic abuse, you're still so tied to your abuser sometimes. You can't see the forest for the trees, for lack of a better expression. Yeah.
So, through all the self-reflection and growth that you did, so who is Janice today?
I'm someone who is passionate about helping others to not let a breakup be you. I think that it can actually make you. It doesn't have to break you. I'm also someone who is fiercely independent. That was something that definitely came out of a divorce and then leaving domestic violence and just kind of realizing that I had led my life very outward focused rather than just supporting myself. Mm-hmm. And that's also came from being raised in the Mormon church. As women, that's not strongly emphasized. So I'm someone who loves to surround myself with beauty. I like to create beauty for other people. I love my freedom, like I said, my independence, and someone who wants to help others and wake up every day thinking about how I can improve myself and improve my community.
I love that. So for the woman, individual that may be going through, a difficult breakup or a domestic violence, narcissistic, environment, what advice would you give to that person? Something that they can start taking action immediately on.
If you want to leave, decide that you are going to leave and put a practical plan in place. I actually had that in my marriage. Things were getting so bad that I had 2 friends who I said, if things get heated in the middle of the night, can I call you? I might need to get out. And I had a bag packed in my closet. Boom. I was able to execute it. I did not want to, but I was able to. I lacked that when I left my abuser. And, your life is in so much chaos when you're in the midst of domestic violence. But I would say, make a plan and don't look back. And that is so much easier said than done. But, and actually I had a friend recently leave quite an abusive situation for the first and what it will be the last time. And I just want every woman to know when you decide to leave, even when you think you still have feelings for the person, if your gut is telling you to get out and you get out, you will never, ever regret it. You will look back and be so proud of yourself.
Yeah. And that's so true because, as women, we have that intuition and oftentimes we ignore it because of the insecurities, because of the gaslighting. And also something that you mentioned, because of the lack of support from those people that are around us. So what would you tell the support system that feels, why aren't you leaving? Like, why haven't you left yet? Because it's not as easy as they make it sound.
No, it's not. And you need to understand that you may not understand what this person is going through. You may not at all understand the choices that they make, and you're not supposed to. If you are their friend, if you are their family member, make sure that you are there when they do decide to leave. Open them with loving arms, but also know that this is a path and these are decisions that a person has to make for themselves. And yes, it may be very hard to watch. And I totally get that. But just having someone there could make all the difference in the world to a woman who is thinking about leaving.
Yeah.
And this is why so many women do actually stay, is your finances are tied up with this person. They most likely have got their name on the lease.
Right.
And so you are going to be the one who has to leave because they're so good at finagling these things. Just be there. Try so hard to not be judgmental. Go online and just look, Google how to support a survivor of domestic violence, and just do your best. Do not turn your back. Do not judge. Let people, make decisions when it's right for them. Yeah. And then be that light in their life. I mean, these are hard times. Yeah. This person may look back and be so thankful that you were there when everybody else wasn't.
Right. That's very true. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about the different businesses that you have. And I know that you're passionate about basically paying it forward and making sure that individuals, survive.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about that, and tell us also how individuals can connect with you.
Yes. I do want to mention that when I was going through my divorce, part of the community that I was surrounded with, I was kind of in the forefront of the life coaching explosion that happened, 2008, 2009. And I actually was lucky enough that someone in my community was graduating and gave me like a discounted coaching package. Yeah. And that is one reason why I still pay it forward today, because it made a big difference. Let's just say that. So yes, today I work one-on-one with people who are still struggling with a breakup, often between 3 months and 12 months in. I also work with women who are single and want to figure out how to make the most out of this chapter in life. I firmly believe that the happier you are single, the happier you are overall, the better relationships you have, the better sex you have, the more fun you have in life. And so I have a program called Sex and the Single Girl. And that's just like kind of figuring out how to do that. And then along those same lines, I think that a lot of people are curious about attachment style. And I believe that using your time as a single person to not just discover what your attachment style is, but to move towards a more securely attached style is an opportunity that you get when you're single. And so I have a program called Becoming Securely Attached. And that's what we do. I would love everybody to come and check out the podcast. It's Breakups, Broken Hearts, and Moving On. And as far as hanging out with me online, I'm on Instagram. That is where I hang out with my people.
So you are on the Fearless Fridays podcast. How are you living a fearless life?
I guess I'm unapologetically me, really. I think I have a lifestyle that some people might find a little, challenging to the way that they do things. I'm very into the solo community, which are, people who base their lives around being your own soulmate, which I know is a different way for people to view things. I do have relationships, but I still consider myself to be either single at heart or solo polyamorous. Yeah. And I mean, don't apologize for anything in that regard. And also I think as far as fearless goes, keeping my freedom and my independence at the forefront of every single decision that I make, I think helps my decision-making process. And yeah, it does help me be quite fearless. Mm-hmm. And when you're a woman doing it for yourself, you got to throw fear out the window.
I love that. I love that. What are some red flags that you immediately recognize now in individuals that you're like, no, this is not for me, I'm out?
Mm-hmm. I watch what people say for sure. And when they say it, I still, have people who are very interested in me who just push too hard from the very beginning. I think people's expectations on your time is something that you should pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think that anyone should be pressuring you to be exclusive really very early on at all. I think that's something that you decide months in. And so I would say that that's a red flag when someone is kind of expecting you to just be with them. When someone tries to tell you that they've either never met someone like you before or that they're falling in love with you, within the first month or two of dating. I mean, they might not have met anyone like you before, but that's a really grandiose thing to say to someone who you don't really know. So how do you know? And also, this is a good one. When you are first starting to date someone, pay attention to how often they are trying to get in touch. A lot of people will start texting just constantly, and you do not need that with someone who you've just met at all. And they do not need to be inserting themselves into your day on a daily basis. Personally, I know that some women might push against this, but when I'm just starting to date someone, it is a red flag for me when I'm getting the good morning and the good night texts. And we've just started dating. That's too much. You need to organically get to know one another before you decide that you need to be a part of, the everyday life together.
Yeah. What would you say is an idea, like the perfect, not perfect, but an ideal first date to go on?
Oh, okay. I mean, that's actually pretty simple. And I love this question. I think a first date should be short and sweet. And very, very low lift, low expectation. I always say if the conversation is good on the first date, then it's a second date. Keeping the parameters to we're going to meet, we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to be on our way. And I very firmly believe, I think the happy hour date has it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
you get to go somewhere fun. You get to have an activity because you're ordering drinks, but the expectation of what's going to happen is pretty low. You're just at a bar having a chat, and you can, leave after regardless if you're loving it or not. And all you need to see is that if the conversation flows. And, if the conversation doesn't flow during happy hour, that's your answer. But if it does, then move on to the dinner, movies, activities, whatever is next. So do the happy hour date, and then always make sure that you have planned something to go and do after, so that you can just, keep it to the hour or two, go and then think about what has happened. Think about what you actually felt about the person, and then make a decision as far as more time goes after that.
Yeah, I love that. So what are you looking forward to for the rest of 2024 in your business, personally? What are you working on?
Well, I'm actually going to be switching the direction of my podcast. So Breakups, Broken Hearts, and Moving On is going through a huge transition right now that I believe will be complete by the end of March, if not mid-April. And while I am still going to be doing content around breakups for sure, I'm also going to be doing a lot of content around sex positivity, relationships, secure attachment, sex, non-monogamy, and living the solo life.
I love that.
So that's something I am like smack dab in the middle of, and just really on fire about it. I have enjoyed doing content around breakups for a few years now. And, my interests have expanded. I think that breakups, if you can heal from them, lead you to a positive solo life. And then that is a portal to just so many other things. And so I kind of want to put a little bit more juice into that chapter of life. And it's like, now I'm recovered. Now what do I do with this amazing opportunity?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's going to be spicy. We're going to talk about some taboo things. It's going to be a lot of fun. But that's what I'm most on fire about. If you are single right now, do not let this opportunity go to waste. There is so much to learn about yourself. If you can lay a good foundation during this time of your life, you have no idea what you are about to encounter, and you have no idea what you can accomplish. You have no idea how much you can call in. Your confidence is your superpower, and you gain your confidence by having a happy single or solo life. So use this time.
Yeah, wise words, because as a married woman, ma'am, let me tell you that rediscovering who you are and finally stepping into your truth is extremely difficult. So definitely enjoy those single years before you get attached. Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Maryann. I had so much fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star review and share with a friend or two. If you're not already following us on social media, come join the Fearless community at MRD Empowerment Solutions on Facebook or Instagram, or visit our website, MaryanrRivera-Dannert.com. I'll catch you next week with a new episode, and remember that you are a priority and you matter.